Hello, everyone. My name is Zenzi Sewa, as you well know, here with Spiritual Infinity. And my guest today is Aaron Scott, who worked in Wall Street for over 10 decades, did very well, but turned away from it when he found his spirituality. And I'm sure that was coming on before. And how through that spirituality, he sees his life so much differently now, how he uses that, and how through illusions he has been able to turn things around and see things in a different perspective. And he's going to share that knowledge with us today. So without much further ado, Aaron Scott, welcome to Spiritual Infinity, my podcast.
Thank you, Zenzi. Really pleasure to be here.
Where are you? Because I'm here in London, England. Where are you based?
I am in the other belly of the beast, New York City, New York.
Oh, the belly of the beast. Okay, you're in New York. Okay, and there's a time difference. So here it's afternoon, over there it's in the morning. So thank you for that, because people are listening from all over. Aaron, you have been, yes, in the nest of the beast, in Wall Street, and all the hub and all the hype and all the illusions, and you've come out of it. So please share your journey with us. How did you come out, and how did you connect to your spirituality?
Yes, thank you. So I would say that, I think you alluded to this, but I've kind of been on a journey for quite some time. I've been, even at university, I had a deep interest in philosophy, economic theory, really understanding how systems have, were created and have evolved, and how we as humanity, if you will, have sort of accepted blindly inherited belief systems, inherited identities, and how that in many ways has shaped and formed not only our individual identity, but also society as at large. And I think that it was really with my experience. I've been on Wall Street for 20 years now. I and not just kind of in an ancillary capacity. I founded and am the managing partner of a hedge fund. So I've seen it all, right? And really what my experience has shown me is how, in many ways, I believe, or I know, people have accepted and decided to live their life. And I'd say at the tantamount, the highest level, believing that materialism and consumerism and a myopic focus on money is the only way to live life, is the way people structure their lives. And it's really understanding, and I've kind of been on a journey to understanding how that is and why that is, because things don't just happen for a reason. This isn't like human nature, right? So it's about questioning. It's about creating a critical conversation and curiosity around these topics, and through them coming to a better understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
So true. So very true. It is about discussion. It is about awakening, but awakening to understand how these things affect our life and shape us. So how did your spirituality jump in to take the blindfold, take the mask off, help?
Yeah, sure. So I think, and again, I guess my focus and approach has been in really going back to history and understanding how certain systems came to be formed. Who were the sculptors, the shapers, the architects of these systems? What were what was their aim? What was their approach? And I mean, going as far back as the formation of Christianity, even further into the ancient Egyptian schools of wisdom, and understanding how those civilizations and those religious institutions structured themselves, and then how those evolved into social and economic systems, right? So I really have kind of, I will not accept blindly until I get a full understanding. And really what I've come to see is that, when we go into, specifically when we look at kind of spirituality, and you look at the manner by which people view spirituality in the present day, a lot of people kind of lean towards their religions, right?
Yeah.
And they seek to find truth and spirituality through religion. But in fact, in many ways, and this is not, after kind of how I understand the world, this is not shocking, right? Many things are so inverted in our present day reality, where healthcare doesn't cure illness, education doesn't educate, right? Doesn't foster curiosity and critical thinking and conversation. Right? Religion doesn't connect you spiritually, right? So I wanted to kind of understand why and how, and what I found was that at the core of all of these systems, or rather all of these religions, is a really hidden common theme, and a theme that has been eliminated for a number of reasons, mostly because of what we've seen with, in the Abrahamic faiths. You saw this overt structure of patriarchy. Well, why are the holy connectors? Why are the rabbis, the priests, the imams? Why are they all men, right? Why aren't women holy, and why aren't they the ones who are supposed to be connecting us, right? So there's a reason behind that, right? So there was a removal of, the sacred feminine, and this was because this was a method of control, where if people, and the sacred feminine being the mystical, spiritual part of these belief systems, and the reason was because if you eliminate the actual spiritual connection to the universal consciousness, to everyone, to all of us, that we are all, and if people realize that they are part of something greater than the material realm, if you will, it's hugely empowering, right? It's not as easy to control, and so you found this complete rejection. All of these kind of like sacred feminine people that were discussed in the Bible became, witches, and these almost like demonic figures. And this was overt, right? So what I have found was that we really have to question and not just assume and look into, because if you don't, you just accept that this is how we connect spiritually. This is how we should be, living our lives, and we end up getting into this kind of robotic, mechanical, unconscious way of living. So it's about questioning, investigating, and coming to a more complete understanding of where we created these associations and where we established our identity.
Now, before we go on, I would like to ask you, what made you want to go down this route? What made you question? Because here you are, successful man, hedge fund and all the rest, and then you started to look at this. What made you want to look at this?
Yeah, I think that this was started really at the university level. There wasn't, a lot of people have kind of like acute experiences, or they go on some retreat and then they connect to something and they want to, pursue it further. I didn't really have a situation like that, right? I think that, at university, I was into philosophy and economic theory and kind of systems, and so I've always had this kind of innate curiosity. I don't know why I have, but I think that what my career has shown me is just how kind of skewed to the left brain way of viewing the world, like the material, consumer-based, capital-driven way of viewing the world, and how that kind of, I started really seeing myself change, and I started seeing myself not necessarily change for the better, and my belief systems and how that would impact my children and the people around me. It started to create a sort of, in many ways, I saw kind of like a decay on the horizon, and it, in many ways, I think only heightened my spark for curiosity and really made me check myself and decide if this was the mind state that I wanted to occupy, if this was the way that I wanted to kind of construct my life. And people, I don't think, again, necessarily just kind of are always looking for answers and have curiosity, right? Typically, people are just kind of going about their lives. They accept what mass media is spewing on them. They unconsciously will identify what, falsely identify, my country, my religion, my political affiliation. It's like, can't we all just like think independently and take a step back and realize that this is such a closed-minded and inaccurate way of identifying and viewing who you are and where you fit into this world, right? So I'd say that's kind of my long-winded answer to kind of what got me there.
It's so refreshing, actually, because you hit on about my religion, my country, my culture, my. But actually, when you go spiritually and you start to open up, we are all coming from one source. We're all coming from one thing, and we are not a drop in the ocean. We are an ocean in a drop. So we are everything, and we're all connected. And if we are everything and we're all connected, and we know when we're put into certain situations, things can alter us or change. It's like going into an oven and being baked or whatever, but we're all coming from one making. And therefore, how did this diversion come about? How did this separation? And when you start to realize that we are all connected, why are we so separate? And that's where, as you say, you start to look at my religion, my this, my country, my that. And this whole universe was not created by us, but now we've got it, and it's my, but it's for all of us. And it is about questioning.
And if you don't, yeah. What's that? Sorry, go ahead.
I said, Aaron, continue.
Yes. So, and I think that that's right. And I think that people don't either have the time or the bandwidth or the desire, right? And this is a symptom of, I think, many Western societies where you have people who are corralled in many ways. And this isn't like, I don't believe that there are, in this concept of like this mental cage, and there are these shadowy figures, twitching their mustaches and casting a spell, right? It's about, in my view, it's about people taking responsibility and people understanding that they are just as, quote unquote, guilty, if you will. They are feeding into these same systems. They're into these same mechanisms of control. People have given up, curiosity for immediate gratification, or they have decided that they would rather keep swiping and fulfill that dopamine hit on social media rather than pursue something that might be more nourishing to them, to themselves and their consciousness, right? So we need to. It's really about taking a responsibility and not just pointing fingers to the external. And I think that it's very hard in many ways, it's hard for people to kind of get to that step because they're so bombarded and so inundated with consumerism and materialism and a desire to accumulate capital. Right? This is really, and this is by the way, this is a byproduct of the way that society and our civilization has been cultivated. Right? When you have a capitalist structure, a capitalist structure, the value system, the ideology is effectively the end justifies the means. So it doesn't matter how you get the money, as long as you get the money, as long as you increase your margin and your profit, that's all that matters. That's what's valuable. But guess what? That doesn't nourish the soul. That doesn't nourish the human being. And if you live and people don't realize this, but they've structured their lives this way, using that same value system, because that's the society that they live in and that they operate in, right? They don't realize it, but that's what's actually going on. So if you can't again, come to that realization or take that next step, how are you going to change or even recognize that you are kind of blindly living your life, not even knowing what's motivating you, not even knowing what's determining your actions?
Okay, you're absolutely right, because we have been groomed, not just in this lifetime, but as you said, you've gone back and back and you started to look how things were done in ancient times, but somewhere it changed and we've been groomed generation to generation to come into this capitalist system. Aaron, how do we, apart from those of us that have been shaken spiritually to look at certain things, how can we then become awakened so that we can start questioning and start realizing, who am I? Who am I really? What is this really about? This does not serve me. This does not nourish me. How do then, how do we get to that time where we, as you say, we have to take responsibility? But because we're living this life of consumerism and wanting to live, this life of fast food, expensive cars, expensive this and that and that and that, and really it's not nourishing in us. How do we turn away from that and become aware of that?
This is kind of the ironic answer to the question, and it's remarkable actually how sort of thick the veil is, if you will, because if people were just to take a step back and they were to listen to themselves and feel themselves, right, you would know right away that something's off where you're spending 50% of your waking hours at a job, right? You would know that, your body would feel that drinking alcohol 5 days a week isn't good. It doesn't feel good, right? So the signs are everywhere, but people are so distracted that they can't pay attention. And this is what, aside from something like meditation, for example, being something that would allow, something that allows you to kind of, transcend a plane, if you will, tap into spirituality. It's also hugely beneficial because it allows you to kind of just settle and experience and feel yourself, which most people don't do. But to me, the signs are so obvious. I mean, think about how you feel at the end of your day. Think about how you feel. Think about how your relationships have been fractured. Think about how your consciousness has changed. So the signs are readily available. It's about people almost unplugging and saying, look, I'm not going to fully commit and fully allow my consciousness to be hijacked by these ads, by, movies, by the media, by influencers. Like but it's so pervasive and it's everywhere and it's hard. But the signs, to answer your question, they're right there, ready for you to see. They're right there.
I don't know. I think you will see since 2021, when we had the COVID and all things and everything started to shut down and people had to stay at home, I think that was a time when it made people stop, it jogged people, and it forced people to stay quiet. But it also forced people to start to look around them, look at how blue the sky was, look at how blue the sea was, look at things. Pollution started to settle for a while because we weren't in a working mode all over the world. And since that time, things have come up that we're saying, hold on, but this is not right. This was said, but it's not working out. And I honestly think since 2020, 2021, the world was given a jolt to sit still, to look, to question, and start to realize and come alive. And I also feel, as you rightly say, we've been fed so much inaccuracies through the media's arrest that mankind has started to wake up, is taking action, but we're not told the actions in case the whirlwind swerves even more, because things are changing. And I think they're changing because individually or collectively around the world, we are standing up, although it's not advertised as much, but things are, and we are beginning to awaken. Don't you feel that?
I do, and I think that, you know, I do. I think that one of the most unique aspects of this is, you know, because obviously there have been, you know, let's call them levers of, you know, there have been pushes of resistance. There have been pushes of, you know, towards enlightenment across history, right? You have in the 60s in the US and the States, you have the kind of like the hippie movement. You have the, you know, there's always kind of offshoots of this way of thinking, of understanding on a higher scale, but it's always been overwhelmed by kind of the capitalist mentality, or the deep state, or the levers of power. Now, what's unique and different about, I think, now is that you have, for the first time in as long as I can kind of recall, you have an administration that's comprised of a number of kind of truth tellers, where you have, you know, with Bobby Kennedy, who's looking at the healthcare system, and looking at how our food has been systematically, in many ways, poisoned and sold and manipulated, right? And so you have, for the first time, an actual, you know, a power structure that is willing to pull the veil back and is willing to actually act on behalf of the, you know, the normies, they're called. So I think this is very unique and interesting. And what I will say, though, and I think this is important, because I think that people, I don't think people approach it or understand this enough, is that people need to use society and these systems as a mirror, right?
Yes.
So with every kind of oppressive system, or every kind of method of manipulation, or however people want to digest it, it's you need to kind of use that as a way to look at yourself and the world around you, and not be kind of sucked in. So, like, for example, with COVID, you need to kind of, again, you know, take that time, but you also have to kind of use what transpired, you know, kind of like the lockdowns, the fact that pharma companies had you know, there's no ability to form any level of culpability. They have a free pass. They're immune from prosecution, right, for any harm that these vaccines may have caused, and kind of, you know, look and say, look, you know, how am I identifying myself in these systems? How have they impacted me? Can I take what I'm experiencing and grow from it? Or do I get fully engulfed within these systems and lose my sense of self, right? So, and there's a lot of this kind of understanding if you talk to other people who are spiritual, and they have these ideas of like, you know, you're here on earth because it's kind of like a school, and we're here to learn about, well, it doesn't have to be so grand and kind of metaphysical. It can happen on a very small scale. It can happen with, you know, your experiences with your relationships, your experiences with work, your experiences with, you know, how you look at money and food. All these different things are possible ways to enlighten.
It's everything. It's everything, because individually we have to look at ourselves, what we're willing to accept and allow, and then collectively coming together, and then through that we can change. But we are the world. We are the world. The world is not something out there. Even our politicians are not something out there. They're what we, as you rightly say, we need to look at ourselves, because it's a reflection of what we've allowed. We've allowed, and we start with looking at ourselves, and then as we look at ourselves, each one of us, we start to come together and become stronger, and then that energy changes. And it's like the domino effect. Once one starts, it affects the other, affects the other, and we don't realize that once we change individually, it changes the collectively, it changes the whole.
That's right.
So
Look, people feel like people feel like they don't have any power. Ability. We don't live under a totalitarian regime, but we allow people to almost, kind of touch on that. We have in truth. This isn't, by the way, abstract thinking. We in truth, all of us individually have the ability to change anything and everything from a legislative level to a judicial level. Like, for example, in the UK, I mean, what's going on there with freedom of speech is absolutely abhorrent. I don't care what the end goal is. I don't care how offensive someone could be. I don't care. It's as you guys say, bollocks. Yes. And if people stood up, and marched on, marched on the power structure, everything would change. But guess what? People either don't care enough or have other priorities or don't think that they can make a difference, right? But that's an illusion. That's an illusion.
A total illusion. Total illusion, because individually we are powerfuls, and when we come through collectively, we can change anything and everything.
That's right, and it's
illusion we need to wake up about.
Right, exactly, and it's actually remarkable when you look on a historical basis how how such a small number of people are able to corral and manipulate. It's mind-boggling to me, and you have to kind of wonder, and this was a big part of it, like why I would think to myself, like, why are people, and I hear these people who are so Democrat or Republican, and they're so crazed about some BS social manipulation scheme where they believe that having drag queens educate your children in class is okay because it shows a level of acceptance and understanding. It's like, no, that's not okay. And who cares if it's Democrat or Republican? Like, have your own value system, have your own belief system. Create something independently on your own. And people are just so emotionally moved, and they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
They're being manipulated.
And you're quite correct. It's it is a small amount of people, and literally it is a small amount of people that are manipulating us all over the world. And imagine, we are billions, and yet those who are manipulating are probably just hundreds.
Yeah,
and
look,
we're the billions and millions, and we're allowing the hundreds, and it's ironic. It's really ironic.
It's crazy. It's actually crazy, and it's not hidden. It's so out in the open.
This is it. Before it was hidden, but now I think because we are waking up, we are starting to realize, and as I said, there are pockets of resistance all over that are waking up spiritually and looking and questioning and realizing that they have that power, and really tapping into that spirituality, tapping into that strength, and having that courage to stand up. That now those that have been pulling the string are realizing, oh, they're waking. They're waking. We've got to move. And in so doing, they're making some big mistakes and making it wider for people to see.
Right. And let me just kind of jump in here and say one thing. And like, there are so many different people, right? There are kind of spiritual gurus. There are people who, have meditative practices. There are people who, talk about life after death. And really my approach with all of this is for people to reach higher levels of awareness and understanding and awakening and consciousness through providing people with facts and knowledge about where their inherited belief systems and values that literally on a linear basis dictate their consciousness and their actions. And I believe that, I'm hoping that this will touch them, because I remember, and I looked for kind of people like this, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find people who are making connections between everyday life and spirituality. And for example, I just did an episode on inventions that were suppressed, and the idea of spirituality transcends all planes. You have, if you look at like if you look at the way that industrialists, the oil and energy interests at the turn of the 20th century, these were methods of extraction and using people to enrich a small group of people, right? Using the masses to enrich others. And they created infrastructure around their industries, their technologies, so that they could, place meters and charge everybody. There were technologies that were suppressed, and these technologies aligned with the energy of the earth, the frequencies, using clean technology that was free available to everybody, right? So this balance, this understanding of resonance, of frequency, of connecting to the earth and the universe as a result, these are real spiritual ways to live life practically. This isn't about, I'm, understanding on a mystical level. There are real world ways that we can apply a spiritual paradigm and construct to the way we live our lives. And this is important because people don't see it that way.
You are saying something that is really rings true. It rings a loud bell, because everything on this earth has been put here for us to live a clean, spiritual, high vibrational life, because we are energy, we are vibration, we are electrical, and therefore everything is there for us to use. But we've been blinded, we've been suppressed, and to use things that actually kill our energy, that kill our electricity, that kill who we are, so that we cannot rise up to be that which we're supposed to be. And if we rise up, we will find everything that we need is there, tapped. And those who are making money will no longer make money, and we will no longer be suppressed, and we'd live a much better, harmonious, clean, loving, joyful life. Because at the moment we're not, because the very essence of who we are is become manipulated, being what's the word I want to say? It's when something is being corroded and being done in such a way that we're no longer vibrating as we should be.
That's right. And in many ways, and also, but this happens not just through a conscious effort by people. It happens. No. It happens. I think it's more pervasive. I think what you find is that people are doing it unconsciously, not knowing what the byproduct is. Right. So people are going about their lives. They're running these companies. They're increasing their margins. They are more profitable this quarter than the quarter before, but their product might not be additive to the individual. It might just be an extraction, right? So but people aren't doing it thinking, oh, I'm lowering the vibration of people and I am looking to corral and control. It's just, it's a byproduct of the way that they've been indoctrinated to create business, to create industry, to live their lives. It's the end justifies the means to the end is ignored, right? Yeah.
And time is coming, and it's here now, where we're realizing, like Kennedy, that our food, the things we put into it to make profit, to make it stretch, to make more money, is actually doing us harm. And that is. And by the way,
yes. And by the way,
it's the byproduct. This is important.
Yeah. And this is important. We have in the United States, we have a central bank, right? You guys have the Bank of London, or the Bank of England. The central bank, we have this kind of mandate. We need to grow at a 2 to 3% rate, and like, why do we have to grow at a 2 to 3% rate? Why is that? Why is that in place? Like, who says that that's the right trajectory for our society? Why do we decide that that's the path? Also, this idea of inflation, all these inflation is not created by consumers. Inflation is created by central banks. So why do central banks create inflation? Why do we have to grow at a 2 to 3% rate? We don't have to. And by the way, a degrowth paradigm isn't necessarily negative for the human being. If you look at the evolution of technology, of industry, and then you look at the evolution of the human being, I mean, what a drastic disconnect, right? Yes. we think that we're at the height of civilization. We are at such a pinnacle. It's the exact opposite. Our health, physically, mentally, has never been worth. Our financial health is garbage. So it's remarkable just how illusory this is and how deluded people are to their own reality. It's really remarkable.
It is. But as you say, it's not. We don't go out to purposely. We've been so hoodwinked, and it's a byproduct. It's time we awaken to that.
That's
Aaron,
right.
what are you doing yourself now in your life and to help people? How can people connect to you? How can people hear more? Tell us about you. Because
I think
and so much to give.
Yeah, so look, I think the best way is to listen in on my podcast, the Evolved Podcast by Aaron Scott. And I think that what people will realize is in tuning in, they will see, or hopefully they will awaken to a kind of whole other reality that they didn't necessarily know existed. I think that it will give people a real perspective shift. And, it's funny because it took me, and it's remarkable that it took me a lot of kind of strength to go on this effort, because, people hear that I'm doing this and they listen in and they think that I've like lost my mind. They think that I'm like that I need to be institutionalized. And it's just kind of like, and it wasn't really until I kind of so it was very hard for me to kind of pull the trigger on this. Right. But what happened was, interestingly enough, what happened was after I received that from some people that were close to me, it was kind of like, it gave me more strength and more resilience. And it was really like, oh my God, these people are so disconnected from their own reality.
Yes.
These people have actually no idea what's going on.
Exactly.
Even though they're so adamant and they think they know what's up and they think that it's like,
they haven't got a clue.
These people have no effing idea.
Yes.
And it really pushed me on kind of another gear to, stay with this effort. I'm coming out with a book, hopefully by the end of the summer, on a lot of what I'm talking about. And I have really designated, probably 20 to 25 years, critically scrutinizing and looking to understand the foundation of belief systems, of economic systems, of social systems, of religious systems, of educational systems, so that I have a worldview and understanding of myself and of kind of the spaces we occupy. And it's my desire and goal to, impart as much knowledge and truth to people so that they can improve their lives themselves. That's really my goal and effort here.
Lovely. Yeah, I totally understand you. When you start on this path, and it is a spiritual path, it is a spiritual awakening, to take the veil away so people can see what's going on around them, how they've become and how they became like that, and who they really are. And when you start on that path, it is difficult because those around you sometimes look at you as you're crazy, the ones closest to you, and it can shake you. Because it took me some years before I said I'm a spiritualist coach, because the word spirituality is like woo woo. And
right.
Those that I've spoken to, we all feel the same. It takes a lot of courage, and you said it yourself. It takes a lot of courage, because when you start, you think, and it took courage to pick up that gun and fight.
Think about me, right? I'm a guy, right? I founded a hedge fund. I work on Wall Street. Like what the fun, like for me, looking from the inside, if I saw somebody who was a bit, oh, this guy lost his mind. What happened to him?
From the opposite way.
Right. But so it's like, it's even more kind of like, it's even more kind of acute in their minds. But in fact, it's just quite the opposite. It's about getting the perspective and even more of an entrenchment and even more of a perspective that allows me to give more and to impart a better paradigm of understanding for people.
this is your gift and this is your spiritual awakening, because when you have that, and sometimes we don't realize, we start to see the truth and we start to see the real light, and what is good for mankind, what is not good, what is not right for us. And when you're ready to stand up, that is a spiritual thing awakening you, and that is your gift that you've come here to do. So you had to be in Wall Street for those 2 decades. You had to go through all that so that when that switch was switched on that you came to do, you could understand it, and because you lived it, you were in it, you helped to create it, and then you realize, no, hold on, this is not right, this is not the right way. So Aaron, how can people get to you? You say the Evolved Podcast. Is there a website? Is there an email or something we can connect to you?
Sure. So my website is the Aaron Scott, TheAaronScott.com. My podcast is streaming across all major platforms: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, YouTube. So I'm readily accessible that way. And again, look for a book that I hope to get out there the end of summer.
Please. Well, I will definitely be keeping in contact with you, and we will definitely be speaking again to take that
Wonderful.
next step. Oh, because we need that. We need, as you say, it's not just about doing the meditation, and it's about how to incorporate that in our life, and how to use that, how to be aware, and all that there is supposed to be. So Aaron, thank you so much. Is there something you would like to leave us, a little nugget or something that we can share before we go?
Sure. I would say what I want people to realize, if I could impart kind of one nugget, is that don't necessarily assume that spirituality exists only in some eternal realm or your connection to it. It manifests itself in your everyday life, and it's just about grabbing it and allowing yourself to really introspect and come to terms with your reality. And in that process, your eyes will open, and hopefully your perspective will change for the better. It's the spirituality and the push pull between the material, and the imbalance. All these things are readily available for you to see and to touch on and to taste and experience. And don't look necessarily for some metaphysical understanding. It's very, very practical, and it's right there for you to jump into.
Yes, thank you so much. Spirituality is about living this life and how we live it, and we're supposed to live it in peace, harmony, love, joy, and happiness. So for all my viewers who are looking, thank you very much for viewing today. Thank you for Aaron Scott. It's been a wonderful time, and definitely we're going to have you back again, Aaron, when you've written your book, and to help us to look at things in this life and how we can connect. So for now, bye for now. Aaron, thank you very much from New York, in the heart of everything. Take care. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
You,